Welcome back. So last time we were talking about tips for your first bike, and I recommended the sort of setup you can see here, which is road bike with clip-ons. The idea being you're going to learn more about yourself, your body's going to change, and this is the most versatile setup that you can have. Now today I want to talk about when you're an established athlete and you're a competitive triathlete or top amateur, and what sort of setup makes sense. Now, it's the same theme. The idea being, unless you are doing all your races in a pancake flats part of the world, you're going to want a setup that is a little more hybrid in nature. And what do I mean by that? I mean, you've got three positions that you want to be able to achieve on your TT bike. And this is different than an elite or a TT specialist that you will see in road racing, cycle-only road racing. Now, our bikes need to be much more versatile because for a couple reasons. The nature of our bodies, as well as the fact that we are going much slower than the elites, and we have different terrain. And we are racing over longer periods of time as well. And then we're going to run afterwards. So there's much different considerations for us. Now, three positions that you want to be able to achieve. Straight ahead on the aero bars, you want that to be a powerful, comfortable aero position. Then you also need to be able to be comfortable and efficient when you stand. And then the third position is seated climbing. So you need those three positions. It requires some compromises. So in the guide, the equipment guide, Gear for Going Long, I give you some considerations. I'm going to run through those for you. So this is an old school position. And you might recognize the guy looking at me. If you can see him, that's Mark Allen. And I'm at his place in Santa Cruz, and he was checking out my position back in the day. So that old school position has a scoop at the front. If you look, my wrist, elbow, shoulder, chin, it's making a scoop. And it's like this big mouth going down the road. Now today, we're closing that gap between the chin and the wrists, which is the easiest way to think about it. But what I want you to notice there, and I'm not sure if you can see it, I'll use my mouse here. So that is where the bullhorn is, and just a little bit higher is where the pads are. So the bullhorn where I would grip is relatively high relative to the bottom bracket as well as the ground. So when I stand, I'm able to achieve a more upright position. Now what I want to show you here, if we slide down a little bit, this is a BMC TT frame. Now this bike has a relatively small head tube. So the gap, and it's got an integrated stem sort of headset thing. So you're not, even with a positive rise on that base bar, the hands are very low. Now, if you're doing a high speed time trial, you want those hands low because when you're cornering, you don't want your chest to open up. One of the things we saw with my velodrome testing as an elite was as soon as I got on those bullhorns, opened the chest up, my drag just went way up. It was like opening the parachute. So there's a huge loss in gains. Now it's different though if you're an amateur, because if you're grabbing those bullhorns, you probably have your hands on the brakes. And the fact that you're catching a lot of wind is not as big a penalty because you're actually helping yourself brake in a situation where you might be braking. As well, those low hands have a big cost for you, which you'll find if you use a modern TT specific bike for a lot of climbing. And you'll also notice that when you try to climb or apply power out of the saddle, you're bent. So you're bent over, and as a result, you're not able to align your body and drive that power down into the drivetrain. And so you'll find it's relatively inefficient. If you are finding that, what might work? Well, what might work is a different style of frame. Now, this one here, this bike, is Cervelo P Series, and it has a traditional fork that's coming up. So it's not integrated. So what that means is I can use spacers and I can get that base bar up much higher. Additionally, that head tube, which is very small on the BMC, is much wider, much taller on the Cervelo. So the result being, it doesn't sound like much, but the result is the bull horns end up being about 7.5 centimeters between those two fits. The bull horns are 7.5 centimeters higher. Now, what that means for me is I have better power when I'm seated climbing because I can drop my elbows and engage my upper body into the climbing. So I'm more stable. I feel like the power transfer is better. And it's way more comfortable when I'm standing. Now, that's my fit. I want to make you aware of these issues for your fit so you don't go out and buy what you think is going to be a very fast frame, a very fast setup, and then you get into a race with rolling terrain or short, steep climbs that you want to power over relatively quickly, and you find that it's really uncomfortable to be anywhere other than on those aero bars. That can work for shorter duration races, but for long races where you're going to be running long off the bike, having these different positions available to you will let you use different parts of your body and recruit different muscles. And one of the things you'll find if you only have that one position is that all those little climbs where you're not quite comfortable, you'll find your glutes are tightening up, your low back is tightening up, and you might find that that results in loss of power down to the legs, this discomfort and this tightness. So if you're seeing that and feeling that, one thing for you to consider is these changes that I talked about. Get yourself on a frame and get those bull horns, that base bar, get that base bar up. Now the base bar on the Cervelo there is a Zip VUCA base bar, and it's flipped. So it has a positive rise, similar to that picture I showed you in the BMC. And then the other thing we did was we put spacers between the base bar and the cups so that I could get my hand under the cup for another comfortable position if it was a long climb. So there's the holding the bull horns under the cups. You could hold the cups if you want. I like this position under the cups a little bit better. It's a bit more comfortable for me. Now, final thing. When you're optimizing this hybrid position, so now you're going to have these three options. Remember, straight ahead power, seated, holding onto the bull horns power, and then standing power too. You want those three things. What I recommend you optimize for first is comfort. Second is power. And third is aero. Because those last few percent, those little bits of aero gains can be quite costly in terms of comfort. And the other thing to realize is that if you're an amateur, it is very likely you are in a very different race. There's going to be people around you. You're not going to be on your own sitting at 45 to 50K an hour for 4 hours for your Ironman split. You're going to be going much slower, particularly when you're climbing. And there'll be periods where there isn't as much air resistance. And in those periods, if you use different recruitment and different positions, you'll find the overall ride to have been less taxing on you. So hope you bear that in mind. If you follow my advice, you'll end up with one bike that is your most comfortable bike on the road. That means you're going to ride that bike more. You're going to adapt to that position better, and you'll become more efficient at it. And that's a big advantage when you're going long. Thanks for listening.